Her wrists bled against the rawhide. Her lips trembled, but not from pain. He reached for his knife. She shook her head, urgent, breathless. A sound cracked in the distance, not a branch, not an animal. A signal. Her eyes locked on his, wide, hollow. She whispered something he could barely hear. His hand froze. More sounds now. 4, 5, from every direction. The air thickened. She leaned forward, strained against the binding, teeth clenched, begged him not to cut. Not yet. Not until it passed. Not until it saw. His grip tightened around the hilt. Something moved in the brush behind him, slow, heavy, watching. And still, she begged him to wait. He circled slow, rifle raised, every step a decision. The air was too still. Not calm, not safe. Still like a held breath. His boots pressed dry dust that didn't shift. No tracks, no trails. Just the hush of sun and waiting heat. The silence felt arranged. Behind him, the rope creaked. Her breathing slowed. Eyes wide, flicking from branch to brush to rock to empty space. No panic, just calculation. Then came the sound, not from her mouth, from her throat. Low, dry, rhythmic, the edge of something older than prayer. Her gaze stayed fixed forward. She did not look at him as she spoke. He stepped toward the base of the tree, saw where the roots curved unnaturally, like something had grown around an obstruction, or swallowed it. He knelt, tapped the ground with the barrel. It gave under pressure, shallow, recently disturbed. He laid the rifle down beside him and dug with his hands. The dirt came away too easily. Dust dry but loose, as if something had struggled beneath. Then he found it. A bundle wrapped in faded cloth, stained deep along the center, still damp at the seam. He pulled it free, wiped the dirt from the surface. The cloth bore a mark, rough and black. Same shape burned into the skin just above the woman's breast. A curve, a line, a spike, not Apache. Not anything he knew. He unwrapped it. A deer skull, hollowed clean, carved with crude symbols, its eye sockets lined with ash, twine wrapped around the antlers like restraints. The woman stopped muttering. She turned her head slightly. Her voice came low, steady. Buried by the one it follows. He looked up. Her voice shook then. She spoke again, slower. Not made for prayer, not for warning. Left so it would know she lived. He stepped back from the skull, wrapped it again, tucked it under the edge of a root and rose. She stared past him now. He followed her gaze. The desert stretched still and wide. No sound, no movement. Then came the flash. Behind his eyes first, like heat, like pressure. A flashback not his own. A figure, cloaked in black, dragging her by the wrist, her feet stumbling in the dust. Her hair tangled and torn. The man said nothing, just tied the rope slow. Then stepped back, dropped something at the base of the tree. Her voice screamed. His boots kicked dust. But the figure was already gone. He blinked. The image faded. She whispered behind him. It was not the rope that bound me. It was what he left behind. He turned toward the ridge. A long shadow stretched from stone to flatland. No sound, no breath, no rider. It moved anyway. They did not speak. Dust rose in slow spirals across the plain. The tree held its posture. The rope shifted gently where it hung slack against her arms. She sat back now, not fully slumped, but tired, breathing shallow, watching. He crouched in the shade beside her, rifle across his knees, eyes on the ridge. She had not cried, not once. He kept scanning the distance, thought of the scouts he had seen weeks back, lean silhouettes far off, fast but human. This was not that. She turned her head. Her voice came slow, measured, as if naming it too fast would call it close. She told him she was the last, not just of her family, of her bloodline, a keeper of something buried, not power, not tradition, a right, something old that was meant to end with her. But it had not. She was meant to be taken quietly, no struggle, no sound. Bound to a dying tree so her name would die too. Let the bones stay unclaimed and the circle stay closed. But the branch had held, the rope had not. It frayed. Not enough to set her free, just enough to keep her alive. That broke it. She said, when the right is disturbed, the spirit does not vanish. It turns, hunts both ends, the one tied and the one who tied. The man who left her had thought it would end the curse. But he misread the silence. Now it watches from the ridge. He stared at her while she spoke. Her face did not change. Her eyes didn't ask for sympathy, just facts. Memory set loose. His thoughts began to bend inward. What had she done? What made them cast her out? Why would they bind one of their own? Why no grave? Why no mark? But the deeper question clawed at him louder. What had someone else done? He thought of the pouch he found, the cloth, the rosary, and the skull. He had seen priests in the missions, knew their look, knew the weight they carried. What did a priest have to do with this tree, this woman, this silence? The sun slipped west. Shadows stretched longer behind the rocks. Still, nothing moved. The ridge held its shape. The brush below it gave no sound. The bones in his legs ached from stillness. She closed her eyes, but not in rest. He rose and stepped toward the horse. The rifle stayed tight in his grip. He checked the saddle, ran a hand along the straps. No tears, no sign of wear. Then something struck it. A sound like a fist against leather, sharp, sudden. The horse shuddered. He spun. Rifle raised, nothing there. No man, no wind. Just a shape already gone. He dropped to one knee beside the saddle. The leather still trembled from the blow, but nothing had struck it. No hoofprint, no stone. Just pressure from nothing. He ran his hand along the edge. Fingers paused near the cantle. Dust loosened. He pushed it aside. Something lay there, buried shallow, not fresh, not old either. He dug. The soil gave easily again, like before, like the tree's base. The pouch was leather, cracked and stitched by hand, not hers. Too wide, too smooth, no beads, no Apache marks. He held it by the cord and opened it slow. A rosary slid into his palm. Black wood, simple twine, worn nearly smooth by fingers that prayed often or out of fear. Beside it, 2 broken arrowheads. Stone chipped uneven, the points dulled. One still had a trace of dark on the edge. The third item was smaller, heavier. A tooth, not animal. Human, yellowed near the root, silver band around the base, like it had been worn, or pulled by force. She saw it, did not flinch. Her voice came flat. That belonged to the priest. He looked up. She had not moved, arms still bound, head still resting back, but her eyes were sharp now, focused. She spoke without prompting, as if the pouch had unsealed more than just items. The priest had come to the edge of the canyon 2 years back, said he brought words that could save them, words from a book they never asked for, said he would teach the children. The elders warned him, told him not to touch what was buried, not to name what was never his. He smiled and nodded and said his God was not afraid of ghosts. He took 5 children, 3 returned. The 4th walked back alone, with blood on her mouth and silence in her eyes. The 5th never returned at all. The girl who survived spoke only once. She pointed toward the mission chapel, said it breathed in the night. The tribe waited 1 week. Then they went down with fire. They tore the doors from the walls, ripped the books, dragged the man out, stripped the cloth from his chest. The priest never begged. He only said one thing. He said they would see him again, but not with their eyes. Then the fire took him. She stopped talking. The cowboy sat still. The pouch sat heavy in his hand. The sun behind him dragged the shadows longer across the dust. The ridge was quiet again, but not peaceful. She opened her mouth one last time. Not loud, not soft. He still speaks to the thing. The horse shifted beneath the sun, head low, breath fast. Dust stirred under its hooves. Ears flicked toward the ridge, then back again. The animal knew something before he did. The cowboy tightened the strap across his saddle, reached for the canteen, poured a little water along the animal's neck. It twitched, but did not calm. She watched from the base of the tree, her arms slack in the bindings, shoulders drawn inward, no longer pleading, just tired. He glanced at her once, then looked back at the horizon. Still nothing moved, still no sound from the ridge. He walked to the saddle, slid his rifle into its loop, mounted in one motion. The horse did not step forward. He leaned into the stirrup, nudged the flank. The horse only shifted weight again, ears pinned now, neck lowered, mouth twitching. She spoke, not loud, not begging, but with final weight. If you leave now, it will follow you. That is what it does. It breaks those who run. He sat still in the saddle, fingers on the reins. The sun behind him drew his shadow toward her. His face stayed in shade. He looked down at her, skin scraped raw, chest rising slow. No more panic in her voice, just the stillness of someone who knew what came next. He was not part of this, not of her blood, not of her right. He had not tied the rope. He had not called the spirit. He owed nothing to the tree or the woman. He pulled the reins again. The horse resisted. Again. The animal staggered back, turned once, then froze, ears flat, muscles locked. Something had changed behind him. The smell first. Not rot, not sweat, not heat, old ash, dry wood, burned cloth. The hair on the back of his neck rose. He turned in the saddle. She was not alone. Behind her, standing still, was another figure. It did not speak. It did not move. No wind touched its shape. No dust shifted around its feet. It was the same height as the priest in his memory, the same weight, but wrong in the joints, off in the balance. The woman did not scream. Her head tilted forward, her eyes shut. The rope on her wrist pulled tighter on its own, not by force, by memory. He reached for the rifle. The figure behind the tree leaned closer, only a fraction, as if noticing him for the first time. The horse groaned deep in its throat, then silence again. Just the sun, the dust, and the second shape that should not be there. The figure behind the tree shimmered, not from movement, from something in the air. A distortion, the way heat warps the shape of distant stones. The cowboy squinted. It refused focus. The harder he stared, the more the edges blurred, as if the form changed with every breath. He felt the horse shudder beneath him again. Its head snapped low. Foam flecked its mouth. Eyes rolled back just enough to show white. The woman let out a sound. Not loud, but hollow. She shook her head, sobs catching in her throat. It walked out of the ash. It wore the face of the boy it took. Her voice cracked on the word boy. Her chin lowered. Rope pulled again against her wrists, though no wind moved it. The cowboy raised the rifle. Sight steady, finger on the trigger. He fired. The sound tore across the basin. The figure did not flinch. No dust rose. No mark hit. No sign it ever touched flesh or cloth. He fired again. The shape flickered, then returned to stillness. The heat deepened around them. Not warmer, heavier. Like the sun no longer stood in the sky but pressed down through his spine. The rope at the woman's chest cinched tighter, bit into skin. Dried blood reopened, 'cause she gasped. No hand touched it, no wind moved it. But the rope pulled. He stepped down from the saddle. The ground beneath him pulsed. His boots sank a fraction deeper into the dust than before. Then he saw it. The symbol, etched in the dirt between his feet, the same mark as on the cloth, as on her chest. He turned. It was carved into the bark behind her. Thin lines, blackened by ash. Recent, still fresh. He looked down. Another mark. On the heel of his boot. Not cut. Not painted. Burned. He staggered back. The woman's mouth moved, but no sound came. She tried to speak, but her lips barely parted. Her head turned as if something had brushed her cheek. The cowboy clenched the rifle tighter. Then came the voice. Not from her, not from the ridge, from his own mouth, but not his. A whisper pushed through his teeth, slow, deliberate, too close. It called a name he had never heard before. The air around him dropped. Not in temperature, in presence. He dropped to one knee, one hand braced in the dust. The rope twisted again. She opened her mouth wide. Still no sound came from her, but from him, a second whisper followed the first. The same name, drawn from some place buried. He looked up. The figure behind the tree had taken a step closer, but the dust beneath its feet had not moved at all. He staggered backward into the heat. The whisper still clung to his lips. The name still curled behind his teeth, a name that belonged to no one he had ever known. She breathed fast through her nose, eyes locked to his, words forming without sound. Then she found it. It tests you. It does not kill you. It makes you choose. The air clenched around him. He turned his head, but the ridge fell away. The tree vanished. Even the light of the sun dimmed as if behind smoke. A cry rose in his ears. A child. He saw her. Not the woman bound before him, someone smaller. Barefoot, skin charred at the edges of her dress. She ran through a hallway that burned at both ends. He followed without moving. A chapel crumbled in slow collapse. Flames dragged the ceiling inward. Rafters fell behind her. A figure stood beneath the cross, the same one from the tree, the same shape. Only now it wore no face, just smooth skin where eyes and mouth should be. A hand reached toward the girl. She turned, screamed without voice. The rope dropped from above. A thick strand of hemp coiled in the smoke. It did not fall toward the figure. It fell toward him. He looked up. The rope swung again, this time from a beam over an open field. The chapel gone. The dirt hot beneath him, a circle drawn around his boots. Inside it stood the woman, tied, cut, breathing. Outside it stood the shape, waiting. Choose. The voice returned. Not behind him, inside. His feet would not move. His hands trembled. The rifle hung at his side like a burden. She looked at him now. Real. Present. You have to choose me or it, the rope or the rifle. His breath choked in his chest. Sweat poured down his neck. The marks on his boot smoldered red. She cried out again, her voice raw. The tree groaned behind her. The ground pulsed. He could feel her fear, not for herself, for him, for the wrong choice. The spirit did not punish, it watched, it learned. Then it made you pick. He screamed and raised the rifle, not at the figure, at her. The barrel rose slow, deliberate. His arms burned with the weight of it. Her eyes did not close. Her lips did not move. She only watched. Watched him choose. The rifle stayed raised. His hands trembled, not from effort, from something deeper. A current running backward through the bone, pulling memory out from places that were never his. She did not flinch. Dust shifted between them. Light bent sideways. The figure by the tree moved again. A tilt, a lean, as if the decision was already made. Then he turned the barrel, dropped it low, fired into the dirt. The shot cracked open the ground. A flash of heat rippled outward. The soil scattered like it had been holding its breath. She gasped. Her arms fell slack. The rope loosened. Blood ran down her forearms in two clean lines where the bindings had torn her open. The figure shrieked, but there was no sound, only pressure, thick, searing. It crushed the chest inward without touch, bent the light, bent the air. He turned back toward the saddlebag, hands fast now, blind with urgency, threw back the flap, pulled the oilskin pouch he kept for light in the canyons. He struck flint to steel. The flame caught, leapt. He turned and hurled the fire at the base of the tree. It hit the dirt and rolled toward the roots. Flames spread across nothing, then caught, not on bark, not on leaves, on something else, something black beneath the dust, a layer, a crust, a skin. The fire flared. The figure jerked back, its shape warped again, elongated, then snapped tight like it had been pulled by a wire into itself. She screamed from behind him, not the rope, the ash. He turned, she clawed at her chest. Blood smeared across the mark there. It glowed faint now, pulsed with something not light. He dropped beside her, reached for her shoulder. The tree shook behind them, just once. A long, low groan through the roots. He looked at the symbol, the shape he had seen in the bark, in the cloth, in the boot print. He reached out. His fingers hovered above her chest. She nodded once. He wiped it. The ash smeared first, then lifted. The skin beneath shivered. Then everything froze. The flames stopped. The dust stopped. The figure stopped. Even the wind that had started to rise died mid-breath. The rope fell from her arms like it had never been tied. She fell forward into his arms. The tree did not groan again. The ridge stood still. The light returned to its ordinary cruelty, and for a moment there was silence again. But not the kind that waits, the kind that releases. The tree cracked. A line split the ground at its base, not deep, but deliberate. A clean fracture from root to dust. The fire had burned out, but the heat remained. Trapped in the earth like breath in a closed mouth. He stepped closer. She leaned against him, weak, bleeding, but alert. They both stared at the split. Then she moved, slowly, lowered to her knees, dug with bare hands. Dust turned black under her mules. Each handful came away thick with ash. He joined her, dug beside her, pushed through layers of cloth and charred remains. Fragments of bone clinked against stone, not whole, shattered, burned once, left to cool without witness. Then they found it. The skull, small, delicate, the forehead still smooth. One side collapsed inward. No jaw. A cord of leather wrapped behind it, twined with beads scorched to glass. She stopped. Her hands hovered over it, then touched the crown with her fingertips, slow, reverent. She did not speak for a long time. Then the words came. He never left. He never crossed. Tears carved streaks through the ash on her face. She pressed her forehead to the skull. The cowboy sat back, watched her, watched the ground still shifting, watched the heat begin to break. Then he saw it. The shadow returned. Not from the ridge, from the base of the tree, but this time it was small, the size of a child, no longer faceless, no longer blurred. A boy stepped from the broken earth. He looked no older than 10, feet bare, eyes hollow but not cruel. His ribs pressed beneath the skin like he had been waiting too long. Not angry, not lost, just there. The woman raised her head. She looked at the boy and did not flinch. He blinked once, then looked at the cowboy. No sound passed between them. No air shifted. But the weight returned. A different kind now. Lighter, but final. She turned toward the cowboy, her voice quiet. "You must carry him, not me." The wind stirred again. This time it felt clean. Warm. No fire followed it, only stillness, only the work ahead. He wrapped the skull in the edge of his bedroll, folded the cloth slow. Careful. No part of the bone exposed. The woman stood behind him, barely. Her legs shook with each shift of weight. Blood from her wrists traced new lines down to her fingertips, but she did not complain. She only watched. He tied the bundle tight. Then they walked, step by step away from the tree, away from the cracked ground and the ash that still smoldered just beneath the surface, away from the figure that had once worn the face of a child. The sun leaned low behind them now. Long shadows spilled across the rocks. The dirt no longer carried that strange pressure, but it was not yet free of it either. Only waiting. The horse followed behind, slow and quiet. The saddle shifted with the weight of the rifle. Its hooves dragged dust in even lines. They moved in silence. The forest changed as they passed through the lower basin. No birds, no wind, no insect sound. just the crunch of grit beneath their boots. Even the trees seemed hesitant to speak. She stumbled once. He reached without thinking, steadied her elbow. She nodded once, then moved on. By the time they reached the edge of the ridge, the sun had dropped lower. The light now a dull orange scrape. Across the canyon wall, below them stood the remains of the mission. Stone bones, burned walls. The altar blackened but still standing. A cross half buried in silt and time. No roof, no door. She stepped forward, knees trembling. He stayed behind. She knelt near the edge of the foundation, pulled a small pouch from her belt, fingers barely holding shape now. She lit a small bundle of tobacco, held it over the stones, let the smoke rise. Then she sang, no melody he knew, no language he understood, but the weight of it pressed deep. The words folded back on themselves, each one older than the last, worn smooth by repetition passed through generations, a thread still intact even as the hands that held it broke. She finished. The smoke curled high, hung above the stones without drifting. He stepped forward, knees stiff, arms sore. He took the bundle from the cloth, placed it just beside the altar. Not in the center, not at the front, just close enough to be seen. He stepped back. The woman did not speak. Then the breeze came, soft, low. The first one in hours. It brushed his face and stirred the smoke. It lifted the edge of her hair. It passed without harm. Then it was gone. The hooves sounded different now, not urgent, not cautious, just steady. 1 year had passed. The trail had not changed much. The rocks still caught heat by midday. The brush still moved with the occasional lizard. The light still leaned long in the afternoon and turned the cliffs the color of dried blood. He rode without hurry. Dust clung to his boots. The rifle hung untouched. His coat carried the wear of a man who had ridden far since, but never spoken of what happened on this ridge. The tree came into view. It stood split. Right down the center, a dead thing now, hollowed. Bark stripped where the fire had taken root. No green, no birds. He did not stop, just passed slow enough to feel the memory shift in the heat. No shadow followed. He reached the edge of the ridge as the light softened. The sun sat lower now than it had that day. Time had pulled everything forward except the weight of that afternoon. It still hung here. Thin, tight. Down below, the ruins of the mission still leaned against time. Stones darkened, but not collapsed. The altar stood. The path to Batuit worn slightly deeper by his return. He dismounted, walked the last stretch with the skull no longer wrapped. He had buried it weeks after that day. Deep, quiet, no marker, no name. She had not come with him. He still saw her sometimes, in sleep, not in fear. Always walking ahead, barefoot in soft dust, her hands no longer tied, her back turned, but calm. A slow breath held inside a dream. He never called out to her in those dreams, and she never looked back. At night, when the fire went low, he sometimes heard the voice again, not cruel, not commanding, just present. It did not ask for anything. It did not warn. It watched. He had learned to let it. He stepped up to the stones again, touched the blackened edge of the altar. Let his fingers rest there a moment. The breeze returned, soft, lifted the dust from his collar. It passed without judgment, just movement. He looked out across the canyon. The light caught on the horizon. A quiet fell again, but not the same as before, not the kind that waited, the kind that had already seen enough. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and comment on the Old Western Tales.